Imagine boarding a plane for a normal overnight flight and then disappearing forever. No distress call, no emergency, no wreckage found for months. Just gone. On March 8th, 2014, 239 people boarded Malaysia Airlines Flight 37. Expecting to land in Beijing just a few hours later. But somewhere over the dark waters of Southeast Asia, the aircraft suddenly vanished from radar. Then something even more disturbing happened. Military radar showed the plane was still flying. MH370 had turned around, flying silently through the night for hours, before disappearing into one of the most remote places on Earth. And over 10 years later, nobody truly knows why. Was it hijacking, pilot suicide, mechanical failure, or something far more mysterious? A Boeing 777 carrying 239 people takes off from Kuala Lumpur International Airport, heading toward Beijing, China. For the passengers on board, it was supposed to be a routine overnight flight. Families were sleeping, students were traveling home, crew members were preparing for another normal journey. But less than an hour after takeoff, the aircraft vanished. No distress call, no emergency signal, no confirmed wreckage, just silence. And over a decade later, Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 remains one of the greatest mysteries in aviation history. How does a massive Boeing 777 simply disappear? What happened inside the cockpit that night? Why did the aircraft suddenly turn away from its planned route? And what really happened over the dark waters of the Indian Ocean? Today, we break down the complete story of MH370. Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, also known as MH370, was scheduled to depart Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia at 12:41 a.m. local time. Its destination was Beijing Capital International Airport in China. The aircraft was a Boeing 777-200ER, one of the safest and most reliable commercial airplanes ever built. On board were 227 passengers from 14 different countries, along with 12 crew members. The captain was 53-year-old Zaharieh Ahmed Shah, a highly experienced pilot with over 18,000 flight hours. His co-pilot, Farik Abdul Hamid, was only 27 years old and still training. Nothing about the flight appeared unusual. The weather was calm. The aircraft had no known major technical problems, and air traffic control expected another ordinary overnight journey. At exactly 12:41 a.m., MH370 lifted off into the night sky. For the first 38 minutes, everything went completely normal. MH370 climbed to its cruising altitude of 35,000 feet and followed its assigned flight path toward Vietnam. Then, at 1:19 a.m., air traffic controllers in Kuala Lumpur prepared to hand the aircraft over to Vietnamese airspace. The final radio transmission from the cockpit came moments later. Pilot audio recreation. "Good night, Malaysian 370. Those would become the last confirmed words ever heard from the aircraft. Less than 2 minutes later, the plane's transponder suddenly stopped transmitting. To civilian radar systems, MH370 had vanished. No mayday call, no distress signal, nothing. At first, controllers assumed it was a communication problem, but as minutes passed, it became clear something was terribly wrong. What investigators discovered next shocked the world. Military radar systems in Malaysia had continued tracking an unidentified aircraft after MH370 disappeared from civilian radar. And according to that radar data, the aircraft had made a sudden, dramatic turn. Instead of continuing northeast toward Beijing, the plane turned west, then southwest, flying directly back across the Malaysian peninsula. This was no accidental drift. The aircraft appeared to be deliberately controlled. Investigators later determined the plane passed near multiple waypoints commonly used in aviation navigation. Whoever was flying MH370 likely understood aircraft systems extremely well. Even more disturbing, the plane appeared to avoid heavily monitored airspace while flying through gaps between radar coverage zones. For hours, MH370 continued flying in near total darkness. Although the plane disappeared from radar, one system was still quietly communicating with the aircraft, a satellite network operated by the British company Inmarsat. Every hour, the aircraft automatically exchanged electronic handshakes with the satellite, tiny digital pings, not enough to reveal exact location, but enough to prove the plane was still flying. Using these pings, investigators created two possible flight corridors, one stretching north into Central Asia, the other deep south into the Indian Ocean. Eventually, evidence pointed overwhelmingly south, toward one of the most remote places on Earth. The search for MH370 quickly became the largest aviation search operation in history. Countries from around the world joined the effort: Malaysia, Australia, China, the United States. Ships scanned massive sections of ocean. Aircraft searched endless waters for debris. Satellite companies reviewed thousands of images. But day after day, nothing was found. The southern Indian Ocean is brutal. Powerful waves, violent storms, massive underwater trenches, and search crews faced an almost impossible challenge. They did not know exactly where the aircraft had crashed. As the search continued, theories exploded across the internet. Some believed the plane had suffered catastrophic depressurization. Others suspected hijacking, mechanical failure, pilot suicide, or even deliberate disappearance. But investigators focused heavily on one chilling possibility: that someone inside the cockpit intentionally diverted the aircraft. Investigators later discovered Captain Zahari had built a sophisticated home flight simulator. Some reports claimed deleted simulator routes resembled parts of the southern Indian Ocean. Still, no definitive proof has ever emerged explaining exactly what happened on board, and many aviation experts continue debating the evidence to this day. Then, more than a year after the disappearance, a breakthrough finally happened. In July 2015, a piece of aircraft debris washed ashore on Réunion Island in the Indian Ocean. Investigators confirmed it was from MH370, specifically a flaperon from the aircraft's wing. Over time, more debris pieces were discovered along coastlines in Africa and nearby islands. The ocean current supported the theory that MH370 had crashed deep in the southern Indian Ocean. But despite finding debris, the main wreckage and black boxes have still never officially been recovered. Based on available evidence, investigators believe MH370 eventually ran out of fuel after flying for nearly 7 hours. The aircraft likely descended into the remote Indian Ocean far from land, but exactly how it descended remains unknown. Some experts believe the aircraft entered an uncontrolled spiral dive. Others believe someone may have remained conscious until the very end, guiding the plane into the ocean deliberately. And that possibility is what continues haunting this mystery. 239 people boarded Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, expecting to arrive in Beijing. Instead, the aircraft vanished into one of the greatest mysteries the modern world has ever seen. Even after years of investigations, millions of dollars spent, and one of the largest search operations in history, many questions remain unanswered. What truly happened on board MH370? Why did the aircraft change course? And will the wreckage ever finally be found? Until then, Flight 370 remains a mystery lost somewhere above the Indian Ocean. 239 souls were lost aboard MH370. March 8, 2014. If you enjoyed this aviation documentary, subscribe to Sky Aviation Files for more real aviation stories every week. And let me know in the comments what you think happened to MH370.